What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to Dungeon Talks, your weekly extension of Dungeon Nytes. This week with me, I have Gotiruk Oisin, aka Corrupt Savage, and Mr. Faden. What's up, guys?
What is up?
I'm very excited to have you guys here another night. That's not Saturday.
I'm excited to be here.
Honestly, I woke up today and I got about halfway through the day, and I knew in my head, I was like, okay, we've got Dungeon Talks tonight. But then, maybe a couple hours later, I started almost panicking, going, wait a minute, do I have to prep? I haven't prepped anything. I need tokens. I need a map. I need to do things. Oh, crap. And then I was, oh, no, that's Saturday. It's Wednesday. But just thinking that I got to interact with you guys today made me happy. Very happy. So, let's get to this, guys. Once again, Dungeon Talks, your new weekly show where you get to interact with us and ask your own questions either live or via Twitter or Discord. On Twitter, tweet at Dungeon Nytes, hashtag AskDN. You can do that live and we'll try and take your questions, or you can post them in Discord. There's a special channel there for that as well. Now, questions this week are going to be recycled from last week because there are so many good ones, in addition to new ones for us to talk about. So, without further ado, let's kick this off. I believe the question last week came from Ben. What got you guys into D&D? And Savage, we'll start with you.
I was always into like RPGs and stuff growing up, and someone had told me about D&D, and I was like, yeah, that kind of sounds like nerd stuff. But they talked me into it, and I fell in love. I've always liked building a character and kind of role playing out how he would think and stuff like that. So it just kind of stemmed from there and went crazy with it.
So, when do you think that is? When is it that you started playing? You say RPGs. You talking about like video games, or are you talking like tabletop?
Yeah, mostly video games. Tabletop was always something I had looked at, but no one around here really plays it locally. But it was about, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. One of my buds finally was like, "Hey, we should try this out," and it's been all uphill from there.
So 4 or 5 years. So you got 4 or 5 years of D&D under your belt.
Mostly homebrew stuff, but
I dig it.
D&D nonetheless.
I dig that. I didn't realize that you had that. I know you had played before, but I didn't realize that you had like 4 to 5 years under the belt. Do you play mostly 5e, or do you play or other editions?
Honestly, didn't know. We weren't so much on the rule set. It was just, hey, one of our friends wanted to run a campaign and make a character real quick. And we just kind of threw something together. I never really looked at any of the source books or anything like that. It was just a lot of homebrew, throw a character together, see what happens things.
So you basically just D&D homebrewed.
Yes.
That's legit. I'd be interested to see if you still have some of those like session notes and like how you guys put that together. But Mr. Faden, what about you? What got you into D&D? We heard from Kaz last week that it was how you guys met. So we know you've been at this for a bit.
Yeah, I've been playing tabletops and role playing since like 1998, 97.
Oh, that's a long time.
Yeah, I was very young, like 11, 12 years old when I started. And I got involved in it through some friends and my friends' parents.
Really?
And then, yeah, because my friends played, and going over to their house, my buddy's house, and then we would sit down and play. So that's how it started. Very quickly after that, however, it became kind of a monster on its own in me. And I have played in multiple game systems with multiple rule sets. I have played where there wasn't so much of a set rule set from like D&D or White Wolf Publishing. We played with a homebrew rule set that somebody created, which was a lot of fun. So yeah, and yes, of course, that's where I met my wife, was role playing. So
That's definitely a lot of special place in the heart there. I gotta feel like
Absolutely.
I feel like such a baby only having picked it up this year. Like, and that's the funny thing. We talked about last week, right? Like my D&D started this year, but much like you, Savage, I've been playing RPGs forever. Like I remember playing the OG Deus Ex on PC
Oh, yeah.
when it came out and having my mind blown because you had choice and you had all these different things that you didn't have in other games, especially in like a first person perspective. So like I've always loved RPGs, Mass Effect, Dragon Ages, like all those things. Funny enough though, I feel literally for some reason like D&D has been shielded from me because I never played Neverwinter. I never played Baldur's Gate. Like I did play Diablo and I played StarCraft and Warcraft, but like I never, and I know those are strategy games, but like in all of the realm of PC games that I played as a kid, I never played Neverwinter or Baldur's Gate. And so like I've literally had no
man.
D&D exposure before this year.
And Neverwinter Nights
Yeah,
is a fun game. So it's the
I've
second
heard.
one.
I've heard, and I've played click through adventures. I've played old corridor RPGs. Like there was a click game called Shanna was one of my favorite games on the PC. Such a good game, but like just somehow missed those games. I don't know, man. So you and I played a good bit of Arc RP together, which was
Yes.
a lot of fun. So
And that was like a re-injection for me because I had
Really?
taken some time away from roleplay.
Okay.
As a whole, like like in my late 20s, into my because I'll be honest, I'm 34 now,
Mhm.
and so I took some time away from role playing, and this kind of you saying, hey, I want to play D&D made me like, oh God, I'll get back into it. And also when we were doing the Arc RP, I was like, yes, I get to create a character and have fun with that character, and how amazing he was. And I still use him from time to time. And that's also where Eric came from, was out of that.
Like a one shot we did last week.
Yep. That's one of two characters I played in Arc.
Yeah, it honestly, Arc RP was the first time that I'd really embodied RP in that way. And I can have done theater stuff, like I did theater and drama in high school, and I did like a musical in college, but like never formally did RP. I think Arc was probably the first like organized RP that I had been a part of.
Wasn't it fun?
It was a ton of fun, but it was also limiting. And I think that's one of the cool things about D&D is that I feel like there's so many less limits. Maybe just
There are no
because
limits.
Again, I guess what I mean, like there aren't any limits. It's you're completely free to do what you want within the rule set, and even then, the rule set is such a I don't want to say it's a light part of the game, but it is, especially if you're more RP heavy. The story in and of itself is so important, and the ability for you to connect with those characters and have them connect with each other really is the meat of the game. And I think that gets lost because I remember growing up in a very very religious kind of Christian household, and it wasn't that like anybody ever was like ooh D&D, but like I remember there being a stigma around D&D, right?
Oh,
It
yeah.
was like oh
The devil worshippers.
yeah, don't play the D&D, the Dungeons and the Dragons. And I was just like, well, like why? Especially now, I'm like, why? That's so dumb. Like it's the most stupid
like-
thing ever.
And that's like the outside, that's like the people outside not knowing what's going on, trying to
Yeah.
look through the window.
Yeah.
And really all D&D is about, in my opinion, is relationships.
100%. The greater the connection between the players, the way more fun you can have with the story. And I think that's again interesting for me because I'm seeing different types of those relationships as I'm seeing more types of D&D. And whereas in the one shots we're still having fun, but it's way less personal between the characters because the characters themselves, even though we're all getting much more familiar with each other, they still don't know each other. So they're very impersonal, and it's more like classic D&D is described to me, where it's very just dungeon crawly, right? It's like, all right, who are you? Well, I'm this person, and I'm good at killing things. And like, who are you? Well, I'm this person, and I'm good at lighting things on fire. Who are you? I like guns, right? Like, it's like that's, even though there was no guns back then, but yeah, that's the whole point. Is it's very much just like, all right, very very gauntlet. to use another video game-esque, another very Gauntlet style, right? Like, do we have a party? Yes. Are we going to go in a dungeon? Yes. Okay. Kill things. Okay. And the game seems to devolve a lot to where maybe at first it was much more about that crawl. It's much more about these relationships now. So I've got questions for you guys.
I might have answers.
I'm going to start with you, Mr. Savage.
Okay.
Oh, because I've been waiting. I've been waiting for this day where I get to grill you. No, it's really not that bad. No, how is Gotiruk feeling in the current campaign? Because the thing about Gotiruk is that I feel like I don't know why it is, and it could just be his character, because when we play in the 2 one-shots, you're certainly not afraid to jump in there with more dialogue, but Gotiruk is very light, very tight-lipped when it comes to this game. And originally his mannerisms, especially even on the road going into Fanlin, right? Like, why are you talking to me? Why is he talking to me? He's still talking to me. Stop it. Do I have to cut you? Like, they legit was Gotiruk in the beginning, and now you see this change in Gotiruk. At least I see a change in Gotiruk where it's much more relaxed, but still not overly verbose when it comes to getting involved in party decisions and affairs. You're just kind of like, meet X, go. That's very much it. Tell me how Gotiruk is kind of evolving through this process.
That was a definite conscious decision when I was making him. I wanted him to kind of be off-putting at the very beginning and then grow into the party. And a lot of it stemmed from all you guys knew each other before I came in. Like, I didn't know y'all. And so I felt kind of new to the group, and it showed in the character. And I was like, I could play that really well. And so I wanted him to kind of open up over time and maybe have some character development and show that, hey, he's not just hit things and leave me alone.
So where do you think he is now?
He's opening up quite a bit for him, especially with like Oisin, and they kind of have their bond. He's actually fairly protective of like Asteria and Leif. He's still kind of with Bamir because he doesn't like bards for a couple reasons that we haven't got into in the campaign.
You need to DM me these reasons, sir.
It's not a huge reason. It's not like a big backstory thing, but yeah. And so he'll eventually find something that he has in common with all of the party, and then he'll kind of open up more and more as it goes on.
I like it. I think that it's just fun watching his character. There's so many unique moments that you've created through even with the limited kind of dialogue that Gotiruk has, right? Walking up to the counter, I want all the meat you have.
All the meat.
Bam.
Give me all the meat.
It's like, Khajiit has meat if you have coin, and you're like, gold.
I got coin.
It's like gold. And she's like, okay then. Well, I guess we're bringing you some meat then. Just hang on. It's like literally just all the meat. Like, that scene was so much fun. How that to me, I want to ask you about that. In that sense, is for you, like, how does that play out in Gotiruk's head where you just go up and you just ask for meat? Like, is it just as simple as like, I'm hungry, or is there more to that?
That's more just simple. I'm hungry. Like, I'm hungry.
So
I want
funny.
food. Give it to me.
That entire interaction to me was fantastic, because on top of him just like sitting down and scarfing out like an entire plate of meat, you have the entire like tavern's inhabitants looking at you like, hey, that's my food.
I paid for it.
Is there any left for us? I mean, she brought it to you. It's your food. So, Oisin, your character's going through some shiz. Gotiruk, your character has been for a while, but you kind of seem to have either consciously or subconsciously kind of put the motivations for Gotiruk to maybe go meet up with the other orcs on the back burner. But Ashin, you are going through some right now. How describe to me kind of where Ashin's at?
Um, Pained
Hmm.
because he sees what needs to be done in front of him, and he's willing to do what needs to be done. But he's at kind of a crossroads because there's two ways that he can go about it. He can embrace the dark change that's coming. Well, I don't want to say dark because we don't really know exactly like what that would be.
Well, it's. I mean, you're talking Chevresh, right? You're talking the mark of Chevresh, right?
Yeah.
So you're talking like you can either embrace the kind of calls for vengeance that are growing stronger within him, or you can fight it.
Right. And so that's where his like mental state is at because it's at the forefront of his mind. Um, that's all he's thinking about right
Hmm.
now is the mark and when's it going to show itself next, and do I fight it or do I let it happen? What for the greater good? Do I accept the mark or do I reject the mark?
Hmm.
Because in his mind, if he accepts it, the boon that Chevrosh could offer him may be worth the sacrifice to the piece of or part, great portion of his soul.
Hmm.
If that's the cost. I mean, you don't know. You never know what a deity asks for.
I
It
do.
could be a plate of food, it could be a soul. Could be your undying servitude and loyalty on through eternity.
I wouldn't say, but I can't tell you. I know what it
I,
wants, though. I know what it costs.
I don't want to know, but
I know.
from my character's mindset,
Sure.
he's unsure of what Chevrash wants, of course, for sure, because he hasn't attempted to really commune with Chevrash about it.
That's an interesting thought. If you could commune with Chevrash, because we've only had, I think, one moment where I uttered a word to you as Chevrash.
There was the initial interaction when he picked up the coin.
Right, but I don't think
And
I
then
said
there
anything
was,
to you, did I?
I think that I'll have to look back but I think there
I
was
don't
some words
remember.
said, unless it was just like the raw emotion.
I think it was more just emotion. But yeah, there was definitely the one time where it was just like kill, right? Like
Right.
embrace the vengeance. You're just like, ooh, very
So
very what do you want to call it? Chamber of Secrets, Harry Potter, right?
to give the viewers a little bit of like eyeballs into Ashin's backstory, if they aren't aware, um, his entire village was destroyed
Right.
by goblins and others.
And maybe something else. Mm.
Um, and he set out on a quest of vengeance afterwards to destroy the goblins that destroyed his home. And it was one tragedy after another for him, because not long after that, just a few years, the mentor that had taken him in to train him in the ways of becoming a good ranger
Yep.
was slain
Mm-hmm.
and lost to him. And how much loss can somebody handle before they break?
Sure. But it's the thing about Ashin, and I think this is just a lot of kind of who you are as a person bleeding into Ashin, is Ashin has very quickly transitioned from being more of a stern character to a very involved character. And where you make an interesting point where you say Ashin is conflicted between between kind of the light and the dark pole, right? Do I try and maintain myself, or do I give into this for whatever kind of power could yield me? I feel like there's so many other things that are starting to pile up on Ashin to pull him more to the light side, right? Like the interactions you had with Droop, I don't think any of us have expected that. I legit thought you were going to slit his throat when you went back to get him. Like, not going to lie, I was like, well, Droop's dead. Like, yeah, he's dead. Well, it was fun while it lasted.
funny tidbit of information for you.
Mhm.
I flipped a coin for that.
Did you? That's cool. That's good to know. See, that's fun. That's fun to know. But yeah, so I mean, you have grown with Droop. You've kind of grown with Gotiruk. You've shown concern for the town, which I guess lines up, right? Like you don't want to see this town meet the same fate. So there's that piece too, and I guess that clicks now with me more. But it's interesting seeing kind of the assertiveness of Ashin's character now that he's starting to find more things to care for. It feels like he's grabbing more. Does that make sense?
Yeah. At first, he wasn't sure he wanted to be involved with these people.
Sure.
And as time went by and he kind of got to know them because he was more involved in the town, he has returned to some of what he was before his own village was destroyed.
Mm.
So some of that like lighter personality gets to come out because it's the darkness that has been so much of his life has started to like fade away.
Mm. So in terms of how do both of you guys feel? And I guess we'll transition back to Savage. How do you guys feel about the town offering you guys a tavern? Like you both were like, I sleep outside, mofo. And now you have a whole building to yourselves, essentially.
Definitely unexpected, from my point of view and Gotiruk's point of view. Uh, Gotiruk actually likes it because now he doesn't have to worry about people as much.
Okay.
He gets in there, goes in, that's his place, leave him alone. But it was kind of out of the blue, and I wasn't expecting something like that to happen. But I feel like it'll be fun. The things that go on inside the tavern.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's more from a more perspective. Like you, no questions asked, just like went up to your room, and I was like, oh, like are you just feeling is Gotiruk just feeling that much more comfortable now with the town, with everybody kind of being taken in like that?
Definitely. Gotiruk had some preconceived ideas of a lot of things,
Mm.
and kind of seeing how the townspeople have somewhat accepted him, and they still stare because he's still large and half orc, but
Green,
it's
yeah.
less it's less ill, what is he doing here, and more like, oh yeah, that's the big guy, he's part of the fist. And he can kind of feel a little more comfortable.
It's never gonna get old. He's part of the
Never.
fist. Hey, fisters! No, just fist.
The fists.
The fist to fit. Okay, yeah, never mind. So, Ashin, what about you? How are you feeling? How did you react? Because I didn't tell you guys about this. We had talked a little bit about like, hey, what if the group like bought a business in town, or what if the group did something? And I was trying to think of a reward to give you guys, right? Like it was like, how do I reward you? Because the Wayfeco Cave, while it has a few treasures, doesn't have a ton, but I don't want to give you guys riches and gold for everything because it's useless at some point, right? You guys already have a crap ton of money. So what do you give you guys that's not money, that's not overpowered weapons and armor? It's like, well, crap. We're going to give
Potential to make
you
money.
a place in town, right? Like, how did
I've-
Ashin look at that where you're like, we're giving you this tavern? And you're like, huh?
At first, okay, so right off the bat, I'm going to tell you right now, Ashin does not like the town master. He thinks it's a waste of space.
It's fair.
So moving on from that, when when they gave the fist the Five Finger Tavern, he was actually happy, because he has a space that is his
Mm.
and not somewhere that is rented per
Gotcha.
se. And with his mindset, and like, because he took on training the guards before that,
Mhm.
so now he actually has like more of an investment in this town to keep it safe. One,
And then you
because
have
his
like an
home's there.
established place, right? Yeah.
Yeah, his home's there, and he's training these guards.
So, an extension of this question to both you guys, and whoever wants to take it, feel free. I think one of the harder parts for me when I was trying to figure out how we transition between, running the Lost Mine of Vandover and the rest of whatever it is that we're going to do is this whole setup, right? And how do you guys feel about the group essentially being together for like this, what seemingly like an actual, game time? It's only a couple weeks, but now that's like, hey, you guys are now the heroes of this town, right? You guys are our saviors essentially. Here's a house, stay please. Like what is that like to process?
Do you want to go first?
Oh no, you got it.
All right. So, are we asking me as in me, or me as in Ashin?
Both.
Okay. So Ashin is a little off-put about the idea of being declared the hero of said town.
Mm.
Not that he doesn't mind helping these people or protecting them. It's just the title of hero has a lot of expectations with it,
Mm-hmm.
and the potential for failure is much greater. And he doesn't like the idea of failure.
Yeah, I mean, we had that whole scene with Harbin, right? Like, you're the fist. We've given you a tavern. Save the people, right? Like, that's the expectations there when you sign the paper. So,
And what's going to happen if they fail? All fingers point to the fist.
100%. It's pressure. It's a lot of pressure.
Me as the player who's playing the character, I think it's fantastic.
Cool.
Yeah, I think Gotiruk actually really likes it. He won't be too vocal about it, but he really does. Uh, he, like I said, he feels really accepted by the town now, and that he can continue to keep doing that, and keep doing things to stay not so much in the spotlight, but keep him thinking good things about him. Uh, and me as a person, just I think there's a lot of room for really good RP and really neat things that can happen because of it.
Like Gotiruk's an outlander, right? So
Yeah.
your story, which we've heard little bits of, is just, hey, you were born half orc, something happened, your town was attacked, it was attacked, parents really don't have parents, and you just kind of grew up on the fringes and then kind of grew up on your own. So it's like there's not a lot more to that. Or have you kind of fleshed that out a bit more? Like, are you continuing to build out that time as Godork has grown up a bit more now that you've had time to think about it?
There's a lot of ideas. I haven't, written anything in stone, but there's a lot of ideas of what I want to have happened while Gotiruk was in the wilderness and why he was in the wilderness, because he didn't choose to be an outlander. Uh, and I'm not 100% on what exactly happened that made him one,
Mm.
but he did try to come to civilization, and something happened, and it kind of made him, yeah, this isn't for me. Let me go out in the woods and kind of fend for myself.
Mm.
And that's why he had the kind of preconceived ideas of what civilization was gonna end up being like, what a town would be like, and he's learning as he goes.
Gotcha. Interesting.
That is the major difference between Ashin and Godoruk. Godoruk's becoming an outlander wasn't his choice.
Mm.
Ashin's becoming an outlander was self-imposed.
Hmm. It's interesting the relationship you guys have together, right? Like you both being the strong silent types kind of gravitated towards each other as opposed to butted heads way more often than not, even initially. And I know that's part of it, right? Like we're all kind of like, we're trying to get together, so you kind of find reasons to get along, right? But I still think that very early on, you both were like, "Yeah, why is that guy talking? Why he doesn't stop?" You're like, "I know, right? Please stop." Like, where does how does that relationship, do you think, kind of play into kind of each of your own's value of each other? Like, what are some moments that have kind of cemented that relationship for you guys?
The Nothic,
The Nothic.
the hunting party
Yeah.
where we got into the scuffle.
Mm.
Yeah. That was a bonding moment for Gotiruk.
Um, and Ashin's realization that Gotiruk is attempting to keep Asteria safe.
Mm. That's true. Because didn't Gotiruk, was it Gotiruk that more or less stepped in for Asteria when you guys were fighting? What's his face? First cave guy, big bad of the cave, bugbear, right?
Yeah.
Can't remember his name. It's
Yeah.
been too long.
Yep.
That guy.
When you fought him and Asteria went down because I think the goblins, right? But you kind of stepped in to make sure that to specifically make sure that they didn't have line of sight on Asteria.
Yeah.
And I think that was the first point.
That was the first like light bulb going off in Ashin's head. Like, this guy's worth his salt.
Mm.
And Ashin doesn't care like where Gotiruk's from. He doesn't care about his size, stature, color of his skin, none of that. It makes no difference to him.
Sure.
And Gotiruk has picked up on that, and that's kind of why he's gravitated that way. He feels like Ashin somewhat understands him, with the Outlander background and stuff like that. Uh, so it's that was little bonding moments like that, just kind of built on that already set rule set for him.
So
Also, two hitting a Nothic.
Yeah, that was great.
1-2 punch was beautiful. I have to say, the 1-2 punch on the Nothic was great. Now, I'm going to take this question again from last week. How do you guys feel that Droop has impacted the campaign for each of you, and are you happy that he's still with the party?
Throwing my own
Absolutely
question
happy
at me.
he's still. Absolutely happy he's still with the party. Gotiruk, when he kind of made the decision, was like, oh yeah, he's the little buddy. It was he felt for him a little bit. That was a little bit of his emotional side coming out, thinking this poor fellow had been mistreated, and he kind of wanted to stop that from happening and kind of show him some kindness.
There is still a piece in Ashin's head that would strangle him.
Ooh.
Oh,
Really?
take your thumbs.
Just because he's a goblin. However, Ashin, in a weird way, views him as his child.
That is very evident to me.
And as much as he isn't his child, Ashin has treated him like one, because he was like, well, he kind of acts like one. And there's an innocence about Droop that Ashin can't help but honor and try to protect.
Yeah, it's interesting because when we think about how old Droop is, he's just a goblin that's been abused. So like he doesn't have a very descript thing in the module, right? They're like, this is Droop. He's a little abused thing. If you help him, he loves you. And the more that Droop's relationship has evolved with the party, I felt like having a childlike mannerisms to him were needed to help him better integrate with you guys. Like, it gave us a lot more moments to have like a teaching thing with Droop, like, hey Droop, you're a goblin. You've grown up with goblins. You've never really interacted with anyone else, but you've basically just been pooped on, literally, and abused for a long time. So come be with us. And he's like, you all look different, but you're nice. Okay. And it's like, okay, well, how do I act around not goblins? You know? But I think that's what makes that so special. Like the whole potty training scene still makes me laugh so much. No, Droop, go outside. Go outside. It's like, oh, look, hole. And it's like, no, don't put your head in the hole. Don't put your head in the hole, Droop.
So I think that without those interactions with Droop, Ashin would be a very different character.
Really?
Yep.
You think he would be much darker?
Yep.
I can see that. I can see that because there's not as much. There haven't been situations where you've needed as much compassion as when you have moments with Droop. So how do you guys feel about him not becoming a badass paladin and staying at the tavern?
Yet.
Yet you're still holding on hope.
I don't mind it. I think
I'm okay
it.
with it. Like the character is going to serve a better role where he's at.
Sure.
To be able to come back from our adventures and like regale these tales to Droop sitting around a fire at the tavern in the wee hours of the morning is going to be so much fun for me.
Yeah, I agree. Like we talked about it, and there's so much being a new DM that, you know, it's like, oh, the cardinal sin of being a DM is role playing a character in your party, and then they do like all the cool stuff. And part of that for me is not even wanting to have the possibility of that being a thing, especially early on, because I was like, I don't know what to do, right? It's so much easier when you have control over things as a DM. So by not having a playable character, it's much more hands off. Like it's so much more in your hands as players than it is in mine, and I like that. But at the same time, like you guys so badly wanted Droop to be like a badass, and I'm just like, but that takes away your fun, right? Like that takes away you from having fun with Droop.
I don't think it would have. I think it would have been a lot of fun having him as a paladin smiting things because it's Droop.
I mean, he literally would have been Dobby from Harry Potter, right?
But
you will
more
not harm
badass.
machine, like smite, and it's I
with
totally
a stick.
Get that.
Whack.
Yeah, this is like it would have been fun the first time. I don't know if it would have been fun sustained.
It'd have been fun every time.
Oh, I don't know. I like Droop being his little poor pathetic self.
I was waiting for it to happen with the dragon fight against Venom Fang. I was waiting for a smite on the dragon nose.
No. Dragon would have eaten Droop.
Maybe.
True.
Straight up gobble that little morsel. Straight up. So there came a question. Does Ashin feel that Phandalin is his chance at an opportunity to be there for the townsfolk since he was unable to protect people from his village? He kind of talked about it, but that just cuts right to it.
Woo! Simple answer, yes. It's the one failure that gets away from him. Because he couldn't do anything to save his village. And like I said earlier, failure is the one thing that he can't stand. He can't stand failing at anything that he does. He's a perfectionist. He wants the party to be successful in everything they do. And he wants to be successful in everything that he does. So that one, like, black mark on his record of perfection gets to him. And he views Phandalin as redemption.
Does your hometown have a name?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know that I read it when I was reading the expanded backstory stuff.
It is not there. Because that expanded backstory does not cover all of Ashin's stuff. I have to write his still.
Okay. Fair enough.
But it does have a name, and no, I'm not going to give it to you now.
That's I don't need it now. It's totally fine. We got plenty of time for that. So, Savage, how does Gotiruk feel about the whole interaction with Brugor, right? Like that was a gift that kept on giving too, right? That for me as a DM, no idea how that was going to go. You guys fight to the death, air quotes, and then you have like again the interaction in the tent. Then we have the interaction at the castle, and he's like knowledge dropping bombs on you about orcs and about potential for your family, right? With the whole bear kind of tribe clan thing going on. How does Gotiruk process that?
He hasn't yet. He truly hasn't yet. It's there, and he needs to, but he just keeps fighting. He just goes to the next battle, and because it basically tells him everything he remembers is wrong, because he thought he could see the orcs coming for his family, which in reality he doesn't know what he saw. He ran. And so it's kind of just a mind screw of what even is going on anymore, and he doesn't know if he really wants to even find out, because it could be hurtful. He could find out some things that could really impact him in a negative way, or really positive, but he doesn't know, and he's kind of scared.
As I say, I'm going to turn the screws on that. Do you feel like there's a subconscious fear that is really driving a lot of what Gotiruk does?
Yes.
Because like you have the fear of the dragons, right? Like it's funny when it's something that is your size and it's a fight. You're like,
Let's go.
let's go. And then you're like, dragon, you're like, nope,
No.
this I'm out. Like, I'm done, right? Like, get me out of here. Or if it's again this stuff with your potential family, right? And finding out, hey, even if you can't find out who your parents were, like if you find out that you actually have a tie to this clan, like a legitimate tie to this clan, right? That's technically family, which is something Gotiruk's never had. And you would think that he would be very anxious to do that, because in the times that you're confronted with those orcs, right? Like, hey, orcs, and you're just like, I'm going in, and they're like, no, stop, come back, no. And you're just like, what? I'm going to go talk to the orcs. And they're like, you're a half orc. Are you crazy? He's like, no, seriously, I'm just going to go talk to the orcs. It's fine.
You could have been re-rolling a character that day.
Yes, totally could have been. That was a thought in the back of my head when I made him do that. His motivations for that was he like I said, he thought the orcs did it, and he was gonna get answers and or revenge in that moment.
Ooh.
Like even if Brewer wasn't the one that did it, he's an orc. He was
gonna pay today.
It was a moment.
That's
someone
fine.
was gonna pay.
I had your back from the hilltop. You'd have been good.
Totally. But that kind of was going through his head. He didn't really need to talk. He just wanted a one-on-one.
He just want to punch something.
And it worked. It worked in the end.
I have a question.
Go for it.
No, this is for the DM.
Oh no.
In that moment, when Gotiruk got up, what was going through Brugor's mind?
So in Brugor's mind, I think that the initial interaction for him was always intrigue, right? Like, who's this half-orc coming up here with his attitude and his axe gonna tell me, a blade of Ildevar, that he wants to fight to the death? He must be off his mind. Like that's Brugor, right? And so literally the Brugor, as we were going through that fight, Brugor has multi-attack, but he didn't use it because he wanted it to be a slugfest, right? Like after he took the first real good lick from Gotiruk, he was like, all right, this kid's got spunk. We're going to see what he's made of. Because again, orcs in D&D are much more often, we've talked about this a lot as a group, but like orcs more traditionally are viewed very much as just, they're evil and they are driven by war and they just want to kill. But the reason I specifically made Brugor a Blade of Ilnival was because they are that way, because they're intelligent. They are more intelligent than most other orcs. They are able to strategize. They're able to rationalize. They're able to do a lot of things that are not typical of orcs under them. So having Brugor fight Gotiruk, and I had not planned for that to happen that way. But
You're
to
welcome.
have that fight, no, it was perfect. Again, everything happens amazingly. For that to happen in that way was really fun for me as a DM, but for Brugor was a perfect chance because you guys were actually kind of out in open ground, right? Like, I know that there's people up on that hill, and I just don't give a shit. You want to fight, son? Let's fight. Right? Like in that, because he's literally just, he knows he outnumbers you with orcs. He knows at that point, he's got a whole warband of orcs back in a tent. Like, he's fine. He's just going to go ahead and fight you. And so that whole like, boom, we put you down, and you're like, nope, I'm getting back up. And he's like, really? And then you deliver the KO, and I was like, oh, damn. Let's go. And I think, again, it was that allowed the whole, strength, respect, strength kind of mantra to come out. Like I said last week, so much of what I do with these NPCs, I say, I understand a motivation, but I don't know what they're going to do until I do it.
Right.
So for Brugor in that moment, it was really just like, damn, he really knocked me on my ass. Like, legit, like, okay, we're going to see about this boy. And then that gave me, the whole, like, you smell like one of us, you look like one of us, you a bear. And then I kind of start to bring in those thematic elements. But yeah, that was what was going through Brugor's head was, okay, respect, right? Like, we're going to turn this into a slugfest and see who wins. Never you mind, all he's got to do is pull out his sword, take his multi-attacks, and you're toast.
Done.
Right? But it was never Brugor's motivation to really kill you after you made the first real good connection and really cleaned his clock. So I think that was what was there. So there's so many things that I want to ask you guys. So the idea of, that's not true. I'm going to back up a second. How did the campaign, the initial campaign of Lost Mine of Phandelver, right? How did that go for you guys? And were there things that didn't go the way that you thought they were going to go? Like, what surprised you? That was one of the good questions from last week. It's like, was there anything that surprised you specifically in the campaign that really caught you for a loop?
As like my character, no, but me, how knowing your inexperience as a DM, but seeing how well you DM caught me through a loop.
Okay. Fair.
I was surprised. And you've only gotten better. Like, session 1 was great. You were like all nervous and
Super nervous.
But you did great. And the more that we've played, like, you have a natural talent.
I'm trying. I try hard.
Yeah, definitely eased into it really, really well.
Well, you guys make it easy to do because you do. You guys are very, I've heard this term recently and I'm going to pilfer it. You guys are very giving as players. You give to each other and you give to me every single session. And it really speaks to you guys in how you come willing to have those experiences, even if they're, I want meat, right? Like the most de facto, I'm hungry, give me your meat. And then we turn that into an amazing scene of hilarity. And you guys just constantly go in on each other without hesitation, right?
Well, that's the game, right? Like, one, I just love role playing. So when I get the opportunity to role play,
Sure.
I throw myself into it.
Yeah.
And that's, I leave me at the door. When I sit down for my Friday session and when I sit down for my Saturday session, I leave me at the door. I I put on my DM hat on Fridays and I put on my player hat on Saturdays, and that's it. Like
Yep.
when I'm here for our campaign, that's what I'm here for. So I'm invested in Ashin. Um, and like the first session, like you never know, like your first session when you're playing a character, am I really gonna like this one?
Sure.
That's the question that's always in the back of my head. And the first session, I was like, all right, Ashin's all right. But after session 3, maybe session 4, I was like, yeah, feeling it.
What about you, Savage? What if anything has caught you off guard in this campaign?
I don't think anything has really caught me off guard, anything major. Some of the small little interactions that I didn't think would be like a big deal, like the whole "I want meat" thing. That was just kind of going to be an offhand, "Hey, I want meat. I'm hungry."
Yep.
And building onto it has been kind of a surprise, um, because a lot of things Gotiruk does. He just does. There's
Cinnamon
no
rolls.
real thought. Cinnamon rolls.
Cinnamon rolls.
I really like cinnamon rolls in
Dude,
real life. I was
straight
like,
up
Gotiruk really
blame
likes
Nightmare
them
for
too.
that. You can straight up blame Nightmare for that.
I'm
I
okay
love
with that.
Nightmare
love
was like
cinnamon rolls.
rolls, and I was like, I'm using that right now.
So, I love cinnamon rolls. I really do. Absolutely, 100%.
I know
Love
when you were
them.
like, he doesn't like cinnamon, and I was like, of course he doesn't
Of course he
like cinnamon. There's always gotta be one. Every party needs a pooper. This is what
And-
we
and- and
invited
you know,
you.
That's the reason why I did that.
I know,
And-
but still.
After the session, after we got done with like our after the session little debrief, Carrie and I were talking about it, and she's like, "You just had to do that, didn't you?" And I was like, "Well, yeah.
It worked. I think it worked out really well.
It did.
Nobody else was doing it."
Yeah. And then last minute I thought, wait, Gotiruk probably has never had cinnamon rolls before. This is probably something new to him.
Right.
And it was
Probably really like it.
Yep.
And
So-
he did. He loved them.
So we are getting close to time here. So I wanted to bring in one question. It's more of a overall D&D question, but it's a question for you guys nonetheless. And it's not one that I can answer because I am not experienced. Opinion on a druid necromancer mix as a character. As I see Faded like flips the mic down, and here we go.
I'll take
Okay.
quick answer real quick before you go into it, Faded. I have always done melee characters. So fighters, barbarians, stuff like that. Because it was easy to get a grasp around and not a lot of rules for me to have to really understand. It was just you hit things. So I have no idea how that would work. It sounds interesting, but I would not be the person to ask. Take it away.
There's a lot of weight here. At their core elements, a druid and a necromancer, in my opinion, cannot be the same person. Because druids are all about the protection and enhancement and love of life and nature. And necromancers are all about in a profane way, extending life beyond its natural means.
Sure.
So necromancers are very much they're not ultimately evil, but they do dark things for personal reasons, personal gain.
Right.
And druids just don't have that in their overall psyche as a class, because they're all about helping those around them and enriching everything that they touch, and everything that a necromancer touches is dead.
So I'm gonna lie. So I actually do have thoughts about this. I have thoughts about it as a potential character, not specifically as a build. but as a character, I can absolutely see a druid necromancer from the role play sense that because the druid is so in touch with life and necromancers are so in obviously embrace of death that you could almost have a straight up Full Metal Alchemist style character with that class. Because you, to me, if you were a druid necromancer, you would understand the equivalency of life and death. And so to bring things back from the dead, it costs life. So if you were to wield necrotic magic, I could see you making some sort of either a homebrew or just a flavor element be that like you draw on the earth, right? And that patch of earth dies as you bring back something, right? Like that type of like you're literally the balance. You're the scale of balance between the two things, and you're just a conduit for both of those different types of energy. Does that make sense?
Gage, the Circle of Spores is new, right? Like that's from the new stuff that we're just getting ready to see, and I haven't taken a look at it yet. It seems like an interesting play, and I can see that from that aspect because druids are all about respecting the balance, and I don't think the book. I've never seen the Circle of Spores before. I think that's got to be.
Is it UA?
I'll have to look, but
Point is, I like the idea of that character. I think the
So,
idea
yeah,
of that character is cool in that context where you basically are the balance of scales between life and death as the druid and the necromancer.
there's just
how
in-
would that
in-
work out class wise would be the kicker.
so you could do it. You could definitely do it class wise because you could do like grave cleric
Sure.
specifically and druid multi-class, and you could do that. But if there was like another druid in your party, they would have a serious problem with you.
Maybe. Again, maybe. But we are going to save that for the after show discussion, which is why you should totally come and hang out with us live Wednesday nights at twitch.tv/nighttide. I want to thank you, Savage and Faded, for both coming on the show tonight. Faded, I know it's an anniversary for you and Cause today, so thank you so much for taking the time and being on the show. Very, very much appreciate that. But that's it. Guys, make sure you're following the channel here, twitch.tv/nighttide. Wow, I can't talk today. And also at Dungeon Nytes on Twitter, at Nighttide on Twitter, and also Dungeon Nytes on YouTube. That is where you can catch all of our sessions. I have now updated. We have all 16 sessions of the core campaign are up and available for you to view on the YouTubes. Shortly getting them up on the podcasts. If you go to anchor.fm/Dungeon Nytes, you'll find it there, or you can search for us on any major podcast. We are there. Love your faces, everybody. We'll see you on Saturday night for some more T&D. See you, everybody.